process that's laid the foundation for all of this. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Teesside University. We're based in Middlesbrough with a smaller cluster of buildings out at Darlington. We have around 18,000 students. Over 2/3 of those are local commuter students, predominantly from the Tees Valley and across the wider northeast. And I'm sure that many of our students have previously studied at your schools or colleges. In terms of where we are in the pandemic itself, our trajectory has been slightly different, as you're probably aware, from schools and colleges. So with the national lockdown, of course, we halted all teaching on campus and moved everything online. We came back onto campus in September, but we've been using what we call our hybrid delivery model, which means that our students are getting around 4 hours a week on campus and everything else is done online. As of Monday, we went back fully online based on government guidance so that our students can travel home safely to their families for Christmas. So we're very much in the middle of this hybrid approach, and I'm sure we share similar challenges to your schools and colleges in terms of resilience of the student body and staff as well. This in diagrammatic form has been our digital transformation journey. These are the building blocks we've put in place since 2016. I'm not going to go into these in any detail, but what I would say is we've been on a journey of making sure that we have a consistent and reliable technology base so that all teaching staff have access to the same systems, are trained to use the same tools, and are using the same data. All of that has come into its own during the pandemic itself. There's a couple of things I'm going to call out which will be useful for what I'm going to mention slightly later on. First of all, we were one of the first universities in the UK to use Microsoft Teams for learning and teaching purposes. At the time, it seemed unique. Now the whole world uses Teams or Google Meet or Zoom, and so therefore it's no longer that significant, but it was at the time. We've also done one of the largest device deployments in UK higher education of providing our undergraduates and teaching staff with iPads. And at the beginning of last academic year, we invested in a new learner analytics platform that I'm going to pick up under data. So the first theme I thought was important to stress was leadership and strategy. We've taken the approach at Teesside University that digital transformation has to be led from the top. There has to be a clear, consistent direction across the institution of why this is important and why we're doing what we choose to do. At Teesside University, this is led by Professor Mark Simpson, who's our Pro Vice Chancellor for Learning and Teaching. And it's illustrated in this diagram, which is our future-facing learning strategy, basically our distinctive approach to learning and teaching. I won't go into it in a huge amount of detail, but I'm happy to pick it up later with yourselves. The way future-facing learning works is that round the perimeter, we have 3 core themes. These are things we've got a heritage in. Within the middle are 5 core themes. The core themes are what we want our students to become. And I emphasize in particular digital empowerment. So 2 years ago, we said to the whole university, we're going to digitally empower our staff and our students. In order to do that, we focused heavily on the development of our staff. And in 2018, we introduced a mandatory training program for all teaching staff, which is called our Digital Development Program. It's mapped against the Microsoft Innovative Educator Award, so that as staff progress through that training, they're able to gather points and achieve certification as a Microsoft Innovative Educator. That's underpinned by providing all of our staff and students with the same technology in the form of an iPad and a keyboard. You might ask why we're pursuing Microsoft Innovative Educator status whilst providing iPads. Well, nothing we do is set on one device or one platform. We want instead to provide options to staff and students in terms of what they might use. So the focus of our training is on pedagogy. It's not on technology. It's taking the sorts of scenarios you might encounter in teaching and showing a variety of tools that could be used in those contexts contexts. And what we encourage staff to do is experiment and use the tools which are appropriate for their particular setting. So far, we've taken 700 staff through this training program, and our satisfaction rate is about 95.5%, which I think is testament to the work that our training team do, but also how staff embrace the training when it's focused on pedagogy as opposed to technology. The next theme I wanted to focus on was the use of data. Like everyone on this call, it's increasingly difficult to understand how our students learn when they have to do so fully remotely. I mentioned that at the beginning of last academic year, we introduced our new learner analytics platform. It's called Stream, and what it does is take a range of data sources which already exist within the university, which are created by our students as they engage with their learning, and feeds it into the platform where it's fed through to a dashboard for the student and for their personal tutor. You'll see on this particular slide the range of data sources that feed into it. Many of those, of course, are predicated on being on campus, so attending sessions, printing, swiping in and out of buildings. But when the pandemic hit and we went into lockdown, we realized very quickly that this came into its own to understand how our students are engaging. And what that meant was our personal tutors had a very good sense of the pressures which were now on our students. So as an example, a student who was now only engaging with their learning online on a Sunday afternoon because that's when they had childcare and the rest of the time was spent homeschooling children, etc. It's given us unique insights into how our students are performing and when we need to put support in place quickly and effectively. The obvious question when we mention data is how are we doing that in a transparent and ethical way? Well, we've established a code of practice. It's open access. You can find it on our website. And at the core of this, which was established in partnership with our students, is full transparency. So what we do with data is exposed to our students. Everything that we record through the system is also visible to the students themselves, and they can use that data for their own purposes. The feedback we've had from students is really, really positive, and they're seeing this really as a Fitbit for their education, to be able to see how am I engaging with my studies and how does that compare with the rest of my cohort. So it's really come into its own as we've used data transparently, but in new ways to support us through the pandemic. The final theme I wanted to pick up is, I suppose, a challenge which awaits all of us: student support. It's something which we know is a major issue across the education sector. There's some new research which has been published today nationally around higher education students and the high proportion who are experiencing high levels of anxiety or mental health issues. We move much of our support online, but we found there were real challenges around that, particularly for our counselling services, where students actually found it very difficult to engage with that service when they're at home and doing it online, rather than being able to come into a secure environment. Over the next year, we're going to put a lot of time and energy into understanding how we can continue to enhance our support for students. And I'm very keen to learn how others across the education sector are taking steps within their institutions to address a similar problem. That's it from me in terms of a quick canter through what we've done at Teesside University. The thing I wanted to end with was to say that we're really keen to work with schools and colleges across the Northeast in understanding how we can work together to understand the power of Edtech. And I think perhaps for the first time, we've got a real opportunity at scale to understand what works, how can we evaluate it together, and how can we get that impact from a very solid technology base across the Northeast that's going to deliver really positive outcomes for our students at a very difficult time. My contact details are on there. Please do reach out to me after this session if it can be of any assistance. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. If anybody's got any questions for Jonathan, can you hold them for now, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end of today, at the end of the presentation. So we're very quickly going to move over to Lindsay Carr now. Lindsay is Year 5 teacher and IT lead at Stevenson Memorial School. They're an Apple Distinguished School. Lindsay is the Apple professional learning specialist. She's the Edtech project lead there, and they've set up a one-to-one iPad scheme across the school 8 years ago, which has been very, very successful. They delivered training to many other schools in the local area and beyond. They were awarded Apple Distinguished School in 2018 and lead training sessions alongside Apple events. So, Lindsay, can I pass over to you now, please?
Hi, yeah, you sure can. I'm just waiting for the Circle of Doom just to load through.
Not the Circle of Doom.
Just running really slow. I came home as well because the internet at school was terrible, and I thought, oh, I'll come home. It's just taking a few minutes there just to put the keynote on the screen.
The thing now is we are so much more appreciative, aren't we, of tech issues and tech problems, and we do give people a lot more grace now because we've all had those problems.
Definitely, and I think that we've got to remember, we're not perfect. We're not in a perfect world. Internet does go down, things happen. Like, it's just one of those things. So, well, it's just not coming on.
How about, do you want me to jump to Jessica and I could come back to you?
Harmeet's got it. I don't know if he wants to, if he could just share it on my behalf, that would be great.
All right.
I'm having a slight issue with the file myself, actually, but I'm working in the back end trying to see what I can do with it.
I'm trying. By all means, go to Jessica and I'll jump on after.
Would you be in a position to go ahead, Jess?
Yeah, I'm fine to go now. That's fine with me.
Excellent. Okay. I'll give... jumping to Jessica. Jessica is the Deputy Head Teacher at Adrian Primary School. She's an Apple teacher, and the school is part of the Edtech 50 2019, which is a wonderful award and was described as being the window to the world in terms of their use of ICT in the classroom. The school is located on the seafront in South Shields and is next to the Roman fort Arbia. Arbia. They are a small primary school of 262 pupils with a large percentage of EAL pupils. So, Jessica, take it away.
Can you see my presentation and can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Right, perfect. So we are obviously a primary school, and as you will see from our presentation, we love a Bitmoji. We thought we might lighten the mood a little bit. We know it's a Thursday evening, so we hope you enjoy it. So first of all, it's not just me for the Demonstrator School. I have a team. Obviously, I'm Deputy Head, Year 6 and ICT Lead. I can't do it on my own, so I have Demi, Emma, Justine and Steph working with me, which means that we have a range of demonstrators from reception up to Year 6. And that's a big help, especially when schools ask for help from us. We're able to pass them on to the relevant teachers. So we're going to talk about tips for well-being and workload, because we felt like that was a huge thing for us during lockdown. So what did lockdown mean to us? And I think this gift says it all. We were exhausted. We were brand new to Google Classroom at the time. We'd only set it up a week before the children went into lockdown in March. We ended up having a lot of parental engagement through lockdown. So they had access to messaging us through Facebook, through emails, but we were open at all hours, and it was just so tiring. And then when we came back in September, it was, you're now doing remote learning and you're teaching at the same time. And I think a lot of our staff, it was kind of, how are we going to do that? How are we going to manage? On top of the normal stresses that COVID had kind of give us anyway. So this is what we were doing. So like anything new, we struggled. Everything was taking longer than normal. We doubled our workload as we had created a new strategy to include remote learning into our day-to-day teaching. We were planning for 2 separate lessons rather than 1. So we were planning for the classroom as well as remote learning. We were setting work every day, even when the children weren't isolating. We thought we were being organised, but actually we were just setting ourselves more work. We had no boundaries with isolating in our bubbles, we didn't see each other, and we didn't really think to collaborate. So the impact on that was how we were feeling in school. So we were fed up, we were working late, we were tired, we were exhausted, and a lot of us just wanted to give up. We didn't know how we were going to keep going. Usually that's what we get at the end of the school year, but it was getting there in November. So we had a discussion as a senior leadership team, and we came up with a strategy for things that we needed to change, and we split that into 4 sections. So they were planning and preparation, feedback, time, and ultimately we had to have a focus on well-being. So from there, we came up with some strategies. So rather than planning for 2 separate sessions, we would plan for 1, and we just thought if it works remotely, then surely it'll work in the classroom face-to-face. And that's exactly what we did. We taught live sessions when we were in the classroom, which really helped. And I'm not saying that every member of staff did that. We still have some staff who really don't want to do that, and we completely understand. But where we could, we did do that. Or we recorded lessons as well. All we were trying to do was mirror the classroom. We were also integrating digital learning software into our lessons. So we had things like Reading Plus, Times Table Rockstars, SumDog. We thought if children were used to using them in the classroom, then that would be even better for when they go home for remote learning. All of our learning was centered around the children. So it was all about progress, what is going to help them the most. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We looked for things that were already out there, things that could help us. We collaborated with each other. We started working together. We kept it simple, and we kept it similar to what we would usually do in the classroom. And I think the biggest tip that we got was to plan our children, like prepare them now. So the first week in September, we had all of the children on Google Classroom. We had them all logged in from nursery up to year 6, just to iron out any issues. We set homework as well, which meant that the children would have to go home and they would have to make sure that they could hand in work on Google Classroom, which really helped. Feedback and marking. So marking has always been an issue in schools. And then with the added remote learning, we knew we had to do something about that as well. So we looked at when we were having conferences with students to give them live verbal feedback. If you were using Seesaw or Google Classroom, try and set them some verbal feedback on there as well. Create a comments bank on Google Classroom, which just saves you so much time. We were setting quizzes where it will automatically mark it for you as well. And you can use other platforms like Kahoot, which the children obviously love. Again, use digital software. Reading Plus does all of your assessments for you. So that was a great thing. And boundaries, we were getting work handed in to us late and then going back and marking it. That was more time taken from us. So we then said, if it's handed in late, it won't get marked. And children started handing in their work on time a lot more. Time obviously is a huge thing in our profession. We don't get enough of it, and this was just taking more of it. So we decided to set boundaries. We had a pupil and parent user agreement. We made sure that staff were limiting responses to working hours. So we said that we would be available for contact between the hours of 9 and 5. We would not be available over weekends, and that parents should expect a little bit of time for us to reply to them. Couldn't speak there. We explained the expectations, not only to staff in terms of make sure that you are setting online learning, but also to parents at home. We also took away the pressure of saying that you have to have work uploaded the day that you find out a child is isolating. We gave staff a bit of breathing space and said that that could go on the next day, and that really seemed to help. We had a lot of organisation in our Google Classroom, so we made sure we had topics, we had a timetable on our website, and that we scheduled our assignments in advance. I think training is a big thing. If you can train your staff, give them plenty of CPD, that'll help with their confidence, and it will ultimately save you time as a school because they will be ready. We also did things like Google Meets for assemblies, which helped those staff feel more prepared for Google Meets, who were perhaps a little bit scared to do it. And I would just say again, to be prepared, make sure that every child has accessed Google Classroom, send out guides to parents so that they know how to do it as well, and set homework on there so that they've had a bit of a chance to use it. So one big thing was well-being, and you know, our staff were feeling really down about things. They were tired. And I think the biggest thing that you've got to think of is look after your staff, understand personal circumstances. So we've got a lot of staff who have children, and it was how were they going to manage if their bubble popped, because it's completely different if you don't have children. We had a supportive senior leadership team where people could come and ask us questions. They were able to talk to us about things that they were worried about. We arranged CPD for all of the staff to make sure that they were confident using Google Classroom and all of the apps that we were asking them to use. We joined lots and lots of forums, Facebook. We talked to other schools. We have a great support system in the Word where we were able to ask them for help. And I think it was just remembering as well that we're human. This was new to us, and it was new to a lot of people. So it was okay to ask those people for help. So our successes from all of that was that we then had a greater focus on wellbeing, and we've put so much more in place. Computing is now something that we're not afraid of anymore. We've got happier children, happier parents. The staff confidence is completely increased with computing, not only with remote learning, but now in the classroom, and it's being used a lot more. Children and families who are engaging are learning, and they're making progress in all settings, and workload has been reduced compared to what we were doing at the beginning of the term. So these are just a few things that we use in our classrooms anyway, not just for remote learning, and we found that they were the biggest things that helped us. As well as talking to other schools and use resources that are already out there. So things like My Maths, Reading Plus, ICT with Mr. P, Seesaw, SumDog, they're all fabulous apps that you should be using with your children. So this is the team. You know, we're a lovely little primary school. We'd love to help. And the things that we can help you with are things like G Suite, so we can set up your Google Classroom. We can show you how Google Forms work. We can discuss the apps that we've used and the ones that we feel really enhance the learning in the classroom as well as remote learning. We can just have a discussion with you. Sometimes it's nice to just have someone to talk to who's also going through it, and we can arrange any training as well. And that's all part of the Edtech Demonstrator programme. But that's it from us. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jess. I've just put in a comment there. I particularly like your aspect of not taking in work late, because, as you say, that does create such an extra burden that we certainly don't need. So Lindsay has now got her technical problem sorted with the old switching it off and turning it back on again. And I think Lindsay's ready to go.
I sure am. Can you just tell me if you can see? Can you see that now?
Yes. Yeah, we can see that.
Brilliant. So I'm Lindsay Carr. I'm the e-learning lead and Year 5 teacher at Stevenson Memorial, over the road, over the other side of the Tyne, on the banks of Wallsend. We've been an Apple Distinguished School for a few years, and we integrated iPads in 2012 across the school. So we've been doing it a long time, and kind of just want to share how we've engaged parents during lockdown and what we did prior to that, because I think it's important to remember that we're all putting these new initiatives in and doing things, but there is a lot of prep work on around it, and I don't want people to almost think, oh yeah, they're doing it, and you know that there's a background work to it as well, and I think that's really important. I think, you know, it's nice to look at other schools and think, oh, they're doing it great, they're doing amazing. There's a lot more to it, and it takes a lot of thought and preparation. During lockdown, we were good to go. We went from going home on that Friday to learning straight away on the Monday. And we had 95% of our learning community engaged. The remaining 5% received paper packs due to them not having internet at home. Eventually, we resolved that issue by buying like SIM cards and routers and trying to support them in that way. But initially, for a good chunk of lockdown, it was 95%. So, but the engagement from the parents was actually vital. We live in a we live in a tough area. Deprivation is really low, and our children don't go home and necessarily do homework. And that was one of the reasons why we introduced iPads 8 years ago. So I just kind of want to share with you a little bit of the background of it all, because it did work, and it worked so well that it makes me so proud. But it's not a quick thing that you can do. So it obviously starts with your idea and what it is that you want to do. And I think it's really important that you engage everyone in that idea from the very beginning and continuously throughout. So as well as obviously informing your staff and governors, you need to know what your parents think. And that simply could just be a Google form, parent views. Pre-COVID, you could go and ask them. You could ask them at parents' evenings. And I think just if this is what you're going to set up, what do they think as well? And I'll come to more of that reasoning in a second. But again, like I say, that's really important for me. And a lot of the schools I've been working with as part of the Edtech demonstrator program, and before, because I support a lot of schools in kind of the adult capacity, is one of the first things I always say, well, what do your parents think? What's your learning community think? And I think you can't forget them in that loop. It's really important. So communicate, keep them informed, let them know what's going on all the time. Don't keep anything a secret. There's no need to keep it a secret. If you need to know what they think, really important. Invite them. So invite them to hear talks. Obviously, what we did back then was we invited them in to school, invite them to hear from other schools who are doing this. In terms of the lockdown period, on the first day, we made sure that everybody was part of the initial conversation about how lockdown and home learning would take place. So again, just remembering their parents all the time. We always think of the children, but we must remember the parents of there, especially during lockdown, being the educator as well. Share those successes, share those results, share the good practice, share the work. At Stevenson, we use Seesaw as our main learning platform, so work's constantly shared with parents. We use Class Dojo in early years, but we continually share everything with them. And I think that's really important. I think it's also important to have honest discussions with them. And I think that comes across a lot in a lot of schools I've been working with. I think a lot of schools do have that initial fear of what the parents might say and kind of trying to preempt questions. But I think if you're honest and open throughout, I think that's going to really put you in good stead with them. Then we'll kind of go on to reviewing, and it's a thing that you need to do constantly. I think you can set something up, and like I say, I've been doing this for 8 years, and I must review at least every 6 months, if not more. I spend a lot of time reviewing everything. And I did something really interesting the other day. I had to do some sort of like work evaluation skills thing, and one of the things that it said that I didn't do was ever finish a job. And I thought that is just completely right, because I've never felt like this is finished, because it's constantly being reviewed and constantly being evolving. And I think that's right. That's the way the world and technology go hand in hand. So important to review all the time. Is it working? Are the parents engaging? If they're not, why not? So find all that out. So just kind of put it into that continuous cycle. Just constantly do this all the time. And I would say, obviously, in the other contexts, do that with community, parents, children. You know, you want that constant loop for all different members of your learning community. But I would say one of the biggest things in terms of our success with parents and keeping them engaged was support. Now, I'm only 37, but I definitely used a typewriter at school. And I know our parents will have all had different experiences with technology. And that can be a real barrier to them supporting their children because they don't know how to do it. Because what they were taught in high school has significantly changed. Even if they're a very young parent, it still had a significant change, and it will continue to change at a much faster rate. And I think that's something we always need to just stop and remember. So in terms of lockdown, we started providing parents with videos, some live videos, some pre-recorded videos on how to support the children in particular lessons or with particular maths questions. We obviously provided the children with our own live or pre-recorded, but we wanted to help the parents as well. So it was, what we've done now is we've created this bank where we can reuse. So when we've got single isolations, we're starting to reuse those videos again. A lot of our parents don't have literacy skills. So again, it's about showing them how to use devices, technology devices, to assist their learning needs. For example, obviously we all have iPads, and the children who have the iPad, they take it home. We show the parents how to use things like the voice recording, the dictation, magnifying the screen, colour filters. So that device isn't just for the child, it's helping support the parent too. And I would say offer them opportunities to develop the skills. So again, we just kept refreshing what we were offering. So offering the parents and then encouraging the children to show them and be really kind of, this is what I'm doing. And I think what we did in lockdown was we were very flexible. We didn't have set times. We appreciate that there were some parents who have a lot of children and can't give one of them their time. So we had 3 jobs, and those 3 jobs had to be completed every day. And we did it so that children were developing skills on their own, but also that they were bringing the parents in. So a lot of the tasks involved kind of that 2-way conversation, which again is something that's so successful. And I think finally, I just want to remind everybody that technology changes so fast, and what we all learn at school is completely different to what the children are learning now and probably next year and the year after. And I think that's why I think it's important to constantly review and remind yourself that this is such a fast-paced, changing part of education that we need to keep on top of. There's my details there. Working with a lot of schools around iPads, Seesaw and Google as well. Really enjoying working with everybody at the moment, and kind of enjoying giving the honest view, having done this for so long. Because it's good to share what works, but also what doesn't work, and not sugarcoat things, because like Jess said, things don't go perfect. You know, I couldn't get the screen to work. That happens sometimes, and it's okay that things don't always work, and just knowing that there's downsides, but there's lots of upsides to it obviously as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. A very honest and open description of how you've dealt with the issues around COVID, and how your school has rose to that challenge, but also how you're helping those other schools that you're working with as part of the Edtech Demonstrator project. Right, okay, it's my turn now, and I've not done this before, but I'm going to read about myself. Now, this is something that was read about me a while ago at another an event I was presenting at. So Wayne Hall is project manager for the DFE Edtech Demo Schools and Colleges program at Darlington College. He is ranked, I'm not. The college is ranked sixth nationally and first in the Tees Valley for student success. I'm a Google certified trainer and Microsoft certified educator with over 20 years experience, and I've taught and managed in a number of colleges across the Northeast, including quality and curriculum management roles. I'm a keen mountain biker. I can often be seen picking myself up from the fall in the Yorkshire Dales, and I can be found on Twitter at Wayne G. Hall. So there we are. That's something that came up some time ago. So I will now run into my little bit. Now, this is building on pretty much what everybody's already mentioned around the need to become confident with the technology that we're using, but also making sure that staff are supported with training. So I'm going to have a look through how the Edtech Demonstrators Schools and Colleges program can lead you on to the next step, really, so that you are becoming much more confident with the platform that you're using. Now, it doesn't really matter which platform you've chosen. At the beginning, you may well have stood in front of the reading that you're reading and wondering which platform would be the best for you to go with. But really, there's no such thing as a wrong decision, so long as you have made that decision and then willing to work with that. So whether you've gone Teams or whether you've gone Google or whether you've gone Seesaw, that is really up to your college. And there's not one school that will be exactly the same as any other school. So therefore, it's very difficult to look at another school and use their guidance, although you can listen to what they're saying. So regardless of which VLE you are using, what should it be doing? Well, the first thing it should be doing is supporting the learner. It should support the learner through some sort of community building and some sort of space that provides discussion. Now, this is something that I'm seeing a lot in the primaries that I'm working with. The primaries are very, very good at building community and building that discussion space, the space for students to learn in and for them to engage together, particularly in the early part of the lockdown, when learners were excluded from school, not excluded, that's the wrong word to use, of course, were removed from school, and they were feeling very isolated. So therefore, a lot of the primaries were doing lots of competitions and, running off to find a red slipper and a green tie and little things like that to build that engagement in that community. Because if you don't do that in the first place, then it's very difficult then to get the learners to engage in the learning. You need to get that foundation sorted first. The next thing is to provide some sort of assessing and marking tools. Now, those tools have got to reduce workload. If you're going to put things in place that are going to increase workload, either for the learner or for yourself, then it just becomes really, really cumbersome. So you need a really smooth working workflow that will allow a learner to receive the assignment or the project work or the homework that you're putting out, for them to return it, and then for you to mark it, and then for you to give them feedback. So that needs to be a really smooth process that works well. Next, it's got to give them some sort of collaborative space. Learners work best and learn best when they're working together and they're engaging with others. So some sort of engagement, some sort of space that allows them to engage in that works really, really well. So if you're using Google Forms, then you can share those. If you're using Microsoft Teams as class notebook, then you've got the collaboration space in there. And that allows them to build and work together. It's also got to allow some form of portfolio building. You need to be able to evidence what those students are learning in this remote world. So therefore, some sort of portfolio building is one of those areas that needs to be upmost in your thoughts when you're choosing which to go for. And then finally, and this is where I'm going to lead to next, it's got to provide some sort of training and certification. The training so that staff can use it and so that learners are getting the best from it, but also certification to show that you've got that confidence to use that tool well. So why do we want to get certified? Well, it proves your abilities. It proves to employees, and it proves to your school, it proves to your pupils and their parents that you've got the abilities to use those tools well. It gives you the confidence. If you've passed a qualification, then you know that you are doing what you are doing really, really well. It allows you to learn new things. By following certification path, you're learning how to use those tools, then the 10, 15, 20% that you didn't really know existed before. The next, and this is probably something that the school managers would be more interested in, is that it will save you time and money. I mentioned workflow previously. Now, if you've got that nice workflow that saves you time, then obviously it will save you money. And if you are working in an online world, then you're not printing off paper. So therefore, it saves that paper load. Our college, for instance, we've gone almost paperless in, I would say, 40% of our college departments, particularly computing and business and the like. So they've gone almost paper free. And then next, it allows you to be part of a community. And I think it was Lindsay or Jess who mentioned there about joining those Facebook groups and joining those Twitter groups. That community is so important in helping you to overcome problems. But also it allows you to share your knowledge with those people who are coming across the problems that you came across 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and 6 months ago, because everybody comes around to the same things, and all of these problems are iterative. So if you can share what you've learned in that community, then that's a bonus for everybody. So let's start at the primaries. If we have a look at the learning journey that comes with Seesaw, they have their Pioneers, Ambassadors, and Certified Educator program. To become a Seesaw Pioneer, you just need to be a Seesaw using teacher. You can join their community and they help each other with support and guidance. Once you've been a Seesaw Pioneer for 6 months, you can then move up to be an ambassador. Your role then in that community is to share your knowledge and your learning with others. Once you've been doing that for 3 years, so you've really got a good grounding in Seesaw now, you can then become a Seesaw Certified Educator. Now, all of these are by invitation, and you have to show that you've maintained your use of Seesaw over that period of time and shown that you've collaborated and shared resources with other teachers to engage them in using Seesaw. So there's a nice career path there that you can see building with your professional development. The next is around Google. And this is where a lot of the schools that I'm working with are starting to ask around now. So they've got used to using Google tools. They're now asking around Google certification. So this is something that I'm working with some of the schools around Google and Microsoft certification. Now, this proves at level 1 that you've got a really good grounding of using Google Doc sheets and slides and other Google tools. But it is just an introduction. It is showing that you know how to use those tools well. The next, at Google level 2, shows that you can take those tools and you can mash them up together. So you can take a Google Doc and a Google Sheet and a Google Slide, and you can produce a session that brings all of those tools together to bring that the learning on that little bit more than it would have been if you just used one tool in isolation. They also assess, making sure that you know when to use an appropriate tool. The exam is 3 hours long after you've studied for 12 hours online. It's an online exam, but you do need a webcam so that when you're sitting the exam, to take a photograph of you, and it's just to make sure that you are the person sat there taking the exam. And the exam is scenario multiple choice questions. So they will give a scenario based around a teaching situation and expect you to be able to choose the correct tool to use or the correct application, depending upon the scenario. And then a number of multiple choice questions. And for the level 1, it's £10. So it really doesn't break the bank. And for the level 2, it's £25. And so it's not expensive. You know, you can get 10 teachers for £100 at level 1. And you could get 10 teachers at level 2 for £250. So really, when it comes to a school budget, that's a very small amount to invest in your staff that could then become the pioneers across the rest of the school. Moving beyond that, there's then the Certified Trainer program and the Certified Innovator program, which I know Tristan has completed the Innovator program, and that's something I'm thinking about possibly next year. Looking into the Microsoft world, so we're now thinking around Microsoft Teams. They have the Microsoft Innovative Educator program. Now, to achieve that, you have to be a member of the Microsoft Teacher Center. And there's a number of modules that you can take in there. Now, the modules change quite regularly. They're often refreshing, but there are hundreds of modules that you can take, and they cover things like SWAY and Teams and teaching online, different approaches in primaries, different approaches in secondaries. So that's really a really good way of getting your Microsoft Innovative Educator badge. You take probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to go through one of their learning platforms, one of their learning streams, sorry. And then you have to complete 10 multiple choice questions, and they really aren't odorous questions. Once you've achieved that and you've got 1,000 points, you get 500 points for what equates to an hour's work. Once you've got 1,000 points, you then become a Microsoft Innovative Educator. Taking that a step further, there's the Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. Now, this is a program based very much around your abilities to use Microsoft products. So now what you're demonstrating is that you're not just able to use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and the other tools, but you're able to use them really, really well in the classroom. Now, you must produce a SWAY presentation. I think it's a 2-minute SWAY that you have to present. You have to then also be able to show why and how you should become a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. So they're asking you for that Microsoft skills that you've got and why you think you'll then be able to impact colleagues over the next 12 months. So this is ideal if you're in a coaching role, if you're in a staff support role, if you're in an IT lead role. So one of those positions, you would be impacting so many staff, and this shows that you've got the skill to do that. Now, there's a time frame for you to be able to enter that, and it opens each year, and I think you have until August time to get your entry in, and then 6 weeks later you find out whether or not you are a part of that cohort for that year. And you do have to keep renewing it year on year to show that you are in there. Now, linking all the way back to Jonathan's presentation, I think they've actually got the largest number of MIEEs in a HE institution. It might actually be in any institution. I can't remember. It's something that Jonathan might want to come back with. Then, apart from all of that, there's also the Microsoft Certified Educator Program. Now, that is an actual exam that can be taken, and that isn't so much about using Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, but it's being able to use educational technology in the appropriate situation. So this is very similar to the Google Level 2. So it's not so much testing, are you able to use the tools? It's now testing, can you put them into the appropriate place? And it's built around collaboration, creativity, communication, social emotional skills, and entrepreneurship. So can you use those tools to build those in those domains? Now, there is a cost to that. All of the others, there's not a cost to, but there is a cost to this of $127. I'm not quite sure what that is in our UK pounds, but it's $127 to get that certification. Luckily, I got mine through Teesside University, so I didn't have to pay for that. But again, it's a very, very detailed package of learning that will enable your staff and the people that you're working with to be able to demonstrate that they know when to use an appropriate tool at an appropriate time. So just finishing now on as another reminder of where you can get support for everything that we've spoken about tonight before I pass to Tristan. So it's the Edtech Demonstrator Colleges program that I know has already been put into the chat. So the last thing I want to leave you with is do it now. Because if you don't do it now, then the chances are the longer you leave it, you won't do it. So the earlier you do it, the better the earlier you're going to see the results. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you. So Tristan now, let's have a look what we've got about Tristan. Tristan is the EdTech Project Lead and Director of Computing Science at Outwood Grange Academies Trust. The Trust is recognised nationally as one of the highest performing family of schools in the north of England and continually works to raise standards. Tristan leads ORGAT's team of 28 EdTech leaders and is appointed to raise standards with both internally and externally, and has had over 6 years of experience implementing Google Workspace. That's the new word for Google apps. Tristan is Google Certified Educator and Google Certified Innovator and uses their skills to upskill workforces and inspire change. Thank you, Tristan.
Thank you, Wayne. So On the billing, the title was engaging disadvantaged students, but actually I since then thought actually it's more about engaging all of our students. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of Outward Grange Academy's trust, if you've not heard of our trust, we've got a total of 39 academies, is kind of down the A1 corridor, and that ranges from primary academies, 11 primaries, to post 16. And we're very lucky this year to have opened an alternative provision as well, just outside of Middlesbrough. So we do work across the full kind of scope, and it's great to speak kind of in a community where all of you are from different aspects of education. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do and some things that we've found have gone really well for us over recent times. And just for a bit of context, I guess, we do work in some significant areas of deprivation, and half of our children across our Academy Trust, which is around over 26,000 students, half of those students are disadvantaged. So we do see it very much so that getting our approach right to this is in fact leveling up and is improving the life chances for those students. So hopefully there's some things in here that you might find helpful, and if not, it'll give you a bit more context as to what we've been doing. So we were faced with the same challenge that most education institutes were faced with, in that when we went into lockdown, we had our kind of package of resources, our curriculum, which includes kind of our lesson resources. It included things from Oak National Academy, in which some of our staff contributed to. And, you know, within that, and I know a few people have already mentioned this, the mental health, well-being, pastoral support, and everything else that goes with school. And we needed to deliver that to students in a way that they could access their online curriculum. And for that, we've been a Google Workspace or a G Suite school. It's very hard to remember to say Google Workspace, but I'm getting there. We've been a G Suite trust for probably over 6 years now. So we did have the infrastructure in place in terms of having G Suite across our trust. And it has been absolutely invaluable. And in a lot of ways, the size of our trust, we do have a large central team. The resources, the learning resources, weren't necessarily the problem. It was providing that smooth delivery that I know others have mentioned to the students to enable them to continue accessing their online curriculum. So we very much see EdTech as the vehicle for delivering that online curriculum. And with that mindset, there's been some things that we needed to do to ensure that all our staff and all our students are getting the very best from that online curriculum. So the first thing I wanted to kind of mention, and which I'm sure has been a challenge for other people on here, is access to devices. Device access is obviously crucial for our students to be able to access their online curriculum. And it's just something that I saw the other day, a couple of weeks ago, was that Vodafone has stepped up and they've given away 250,000 30-gigabyte SIM cards to school children. That sort of things in some of the areas that we work in is absolutely crucial. So I don't know if there's any left, but if you're in an area that would benefit from that, it's definitely worth checking to see if they have any more, because I thought that was a fantastic offer, and I do and have challenged other companies to make a very similar kind of contribution to the wider system, because I think there is a responsibility there on them to do that. And it's great to see forward thinking there. So a few things that I'm just very aware of time, and so I'm going to go through some of the things that we've done and that we've seen impact with. The first one was a move to live lessons. Now, whilst this isn't for every single lesson that is done when children are isolating, we have seen some incredible impact offering live lessons to disadvantaged students has had. We've had significantly more engagement, significantly more children coming online to take part in those online lessons. And we did a little bit of work, I would say, in kind of the early autumn, looking at how we could bring more students into that online offer who were potentially disengaging from that. And if you've not read it, there is a really interesting it's kind of a paper by the EEF, and it's a rapid impact summary, and it talks about the social aspects that children require to be able to fully access our online curriculum. So something we thought we would trial is live lessons, and since then we've had some amazing successes in some of our schools, and you'll see some photos of some of our teachers delivering those live lessons. Children love it, parents really engage with it, and it's something that is just kind of snowballed into our model, if you like. From a welfare perspective, and this is maybe something that isn't what other schools will do, is we do ask students to join live lessons with their webcams on, and a lot of the time that is so that we can give a kind of bit of a well-being check. As a teacher who is regularly teaching in classrooms, part of our job as teachers is to do that well-being check on students, especially in some of the more areas of deprivation. So having that opportunity to actually look at the students in our classroom, we found was a really positive step that we've taken. Another thing that has significantly impacted and improved our kind of attendance and engagement with online learning is a really clear structure, communicated clearly and communicated well to both students, parents, and also teachers. There's a couple of examples that you can see there. One of them is from Outward Academy Normanby, and that kind of shows a little timetable of live lessons that makes it really clear to our students where they should be and when in their online in Google Classroom. Now that has really helped our students manage their time, and something that we've kind of stolen in a lot of ways from some of our primary schools, and I really like this idea, is that just to welcome students to school on a morning, some of our schools have implemented a bit of a well-being welcome session at the very beginning of the day, where they essentially just welcome students to their day of learning. They get an opportunity again for a well-being check on those students. It's something for those students to get up for prior to the day starting, and then they can then be directed off to their live lessons. So I'm just trying to share a couple of things that have worked well for us in our context. Maybe not everywhere in every single one of our academies, but it's something that we've thought we will go forwards with in some. Now, we all know that students like to see a familiar face, and again from Normanby, and Normanby do this within our trust particularly well, and that is Mr. Wappert doing his welcome or doing a bit of an address to students on Twitter. They really enjoy seeing teachers interacting with students and kind of explaining to them what's going to be happening that day. So obviously some of the kind of screenshots that I get, that because of students been in there, I can't get the very best ones for you, but these are ones that have been out on Twitter, and Mr. Wappert explained to students that there's a challenge going on, and you can also see a couple of kind of photos of where some of our staff have been prepared and really excited about delivering their lessons from home or from another place in the school if they've been isolated. So that's something that has worked well. But definitely familiar faces, regular communication with students has been great for our students, and I know they appreciate it, parents appreciate it. And it wouldn't be kind of EdTech Demonstrator without mentioning that staff confidence in using technology has in fact increased engagement from some of our disadvantaged students and from all students, because ultimately the better we can make our online curriculum offer, the more likely it is that students will engage with that and take part in that. So there's been a whole range of things, a whole range of innovation done kind of from the top to the bottom geographically of our trust, including the self-marking Google Forms. We've got an Outward Online Learning Library, which is somewhere that students can go if they want to learn a bit more about their subjects, and each one of those icons there is a Google site that staff have put together full of learning activities, and we've also got one for enrichment activities as well, because that might be something they're missing out on not being physically in school. A colleague within our trust has developed a fantastic online quizzing platform, and I do need to mention it because it's outstanding. But obviously, there's similar tools like Seneca that can be used for that low stakes quizzing that does engage students, especially if there's that aspect of competition in there that we found has been brilliant. Obviously, we're a Google Workspace school, so Google Docs does fall quite heavily in our resource bank. But we've also got full modelled videos in GCSE exam questions. In primary, it would be other kind of resources, but modelled videos using visualizers. And if you've not seen a visualizer before, they're like a webcam on a stick. They are absolutely fantastic little tools, and they're not that expensive either. And then finally, we've been trying to upskill our staff, but we're also very, very aware of staff well-being at the moment and staff workload. So one of our EdTech leaders, and I'll talk more about that very shortly, one of our EdTech leaders has started a Google Certified Educator Level 1 bootcamp, and it's an opt-in session that any of our staff can just drop into on a Monday, and that's 6 sessions ending on the 14th of December. So that has just been so welcome, and I really like that format of running a session because it gives staff that opportunity to drop in if they would like to drop in. So staff confidence in using technology certainly has had an impact on engagement of our students. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about how we could help. We're helping a lot of schools at the moment, and we do have capacity to help more. With the schools that we're helping, generally we're giving live training to. So it might be all the way from the beginning of their journey with Google Workspace, or we might kind of pick it up halfway along. It might be one-to-one coaching that we give rather than a full staff webinar. But either way, we will make it work. We give access to our full support library, which is full of videos made by our EdTech leaders and tutorials made by our EdTech leaders. But that also includes full access to kind of policies. For example, somebody asked for a device agreement the other day, and of course, we can provide that. And access to our support forum, which has been set up and is working incredibly well. It's basically a place where any member of staff in one of our supported schools can log on. They can ask a question on there, and either through peer-to-peer support with other schools we support, or from our EdTech leaders, we'll provide the best answer we can. So there is support out there if you are in a position where you're thinking, I don't know what to do next, or if you're unclear. And it wouldn't be right me doing this presentation without mentioning the absolutely incredible team of EdTech leaders we've got. So these are staff from all phases in schools that are appointed to be EdTech leaders within their schools, to obviously support their own academy, but to also upskill external staff and support where they can. So beneath, there's a link to edtech.outward.com. If anyone would like support, you are more than welcome to go on there and send us a message, and we will get back to you. Thanks very much, Wayne. I think that's me finished.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tristan. The boot camp is something that we've rolled out across our college as well, and as you say, it really does engage staff, doesn't it, and builds their confidence, and it gives them the skills to work well in the classroom, but also, as I mentioned earlier, the new skills that they learn that they didn't realize that you could do in Google Workspace is really surprising. So thank you very much, Tristan. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. So we'll open up now for any questions. Leela, who I know quite well, Leela is asking, how do you split up your Google Classroom bootcamp skills for each session? And I couldn't read it on the slide. I like this idea.
Leela, I'll paste that into the meet for you in a second. I'll just get the list for you, and then you've got it.
I've also got a poll running in the questions area. So at the minute, we've got 8 votes running around Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, and Seesaw, and other. So I'm just wondering which platforms you're all using. If anybody's got any more questions, just unmute yourself and ask away, or drop them into the chat. Ty, are you still there? There's a question here for Jess. Can I ask Jess how Hadrian have dealt with pupils who didn't or don't do the tasks set online?
So what we do is we have kind of a system that we monitor. So we give them the opportunity to complete those tasks online. If they don't, we'll send an email. If they still don't do it, we will then phone parents. But just like any school, we are going to have those children who will not complete tasks. And I think as long as we're showing what we're doing and that we're trying to get those children to complete the tasks, that's the best that we can do. But we do keep a monitor of it, and any child who isn't completing any tasks, we keep a record of that on CPOMs, because for us, that's kind of, they're not engaging in education.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, Ty, would you like to add anything? Ty has been very much the LGFL coordinator for this, and he's had a massive impact on educational technology over the last few years. So I don't know if you want to mention something, Ty.
Just a quick thank you. I found it absolutely fascinating. Different approaches, mistakes made, and I think that's the crucial thing about the demonstrator is we're not saying that we know absolutely everything and we are the experts. It's about come on the journey with us. If you want to, in 5 to 6 weeks, get inputs up your professional development, etc., then do sign up to the Edtech demonstrator. But let's leave the final words to Harmeet. Harmeet, you represent the program alongside Wayne and Tristan and Jess and Lindsay. Do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ty. I was just going to echo, it's fabulous to hear all the stories, and really applaud the work being done by our demo schools. And I'm conscious in terms of time, we really haven't even scratched the surface with the Q&A, but I guess it's to take it to the next step really, and get involved in the demo program, and you can actually have an hour's worth of meetings with any of our demo schools and really dig deeper into what we're doing. And actually I read something today, and it was about that we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. So whether you're in a yacht, a ship, a canoe, or you're just drowning, that made me think about EdTech. We're all in different stages on our journey, but we're all here as a community to help each other. And our EdTech demonstrator schools will be able to support you, whether you're just starting out, whether you're just trying to engage those disaffected learners now, or just need help in terms of structure. So yeah, just once again, just wanted to say thank you to our speakers today. And lots of schools are planning ahead for January inset, and if you get in contact now, you can have those initial conversations hopefully before Christmas, and build it into how you start the new year. And also just wanted to say thank you for hosting today, Wayne.
And I'd just like to say that is it Darren Mead there and Mr. Burton, I presume? I think your bookshelves are approaching my sort of standard as well. So it's nice to see some good bookshelves there. So thank you very much. As Harmeet mentioned, please do get in touch. You've seen our email addresses. I'll drop mine in again if anybody else wants to drop their email addresses into the chat. This has been recorded, and I will make the recording available to everybody over the weekend. And please do reach out to us. We are here to help.